Time now for Trivia Tracks with yours truly, Price Robertson. Sponsored by Washita Valley Respiratory Care and Beth Smith at Edward Jones. As the second president of Egypt, Gamal Nasser became an iconic figure in the Arab world, particularly for his strides toward social justice and Arab unity, his modernization policies, and his anti-imperialist efforts. Born in Alexandria on January 15, 1918, Nasser and his family frequently traveled due to his father's work in the postal business. He attended a primary school for children of railway employees until 1924, when he was sent to live with his paternal uncle in Cairo, and to attend elementary school. In 1928, he moved back to Alexandria to live with his maternal grandfather. It was in Alexandria that Nasser became involved in political activism, which increased throughout his school years. In 1937, Nasser applied to the Royal Military Academy for Army officer training, but his police record of anti-government protest initially blocked his entry. He briefly enrolled in law school before reapplying to the military academy. While serving in the Egyptian army in the Sudan, Nasser met Anwar Sadat, who would succeed Nasser as Egypt's president years later. They and two other officers planned a secret revolutionary organization, the Free Officers, whose composition would be known only to Nasser. Their aim was to oust the British and Egyptian royal family. In the 1948 Arab War against the newly created State of Israel, Nasser was an officer in one of 3 battalions, surrounded for weeks by the Israelis in a group of Arab villages called the Fallujah Pocket. With the overthrow of the Egyptian monarchy in 1952, Nasser would introduce far-reaching land reforms. Following an attempt on his life in 1954, he cracked down on the organization, put President Mohammed Naguib under house arrest, and assumed executive office. He was formally elected president in June 1956. Nasser's popularity in Egypt and the Arab world skyrocketed after his nationalization of the Suez Canal Company and his political victory in the subsequent Suez Crisis. Calls for pan-Arab unity under his leadership increased, culminating with the formation of the United Arab Republic with Syria from 1958 to 1961. In 1962, Nasser began a series of major socialist measures and modernization reforms in Egypt. Despite setbacks to his pan-Arabist cause, Nasser supporters gained power in several Arab countries, but he became embroiled in the North Yemen Civil War and eventually the much larger Arab Cold War. He began his second presidential term in March 1965 after his political opponents were banned from running. Following Egypt's defeat by Israel in the Six-Day War of 1967, Nasser resigned, but he returned to office after popular demonstrations called for his reinstatement. By 1968, Nasser had appointed himself prime minister, launched the War of Attrition to regain the Israeli-occupied Sinai Peninsula, began a process of depoliticizing the military, and issued a set of political liberalization reforms. A devoted father with 2 daughters and 3 sons, Nasser was a chain smoker. He maintained 18-hour workdays and rarely took time off for vacations. The combination of smoking and working long hours contributed to his poor health. After the conclusion of the 1970 Arab League Summit, Nasser suffered a heart attack and died. He was 52 years old. His funeral in Cairo drew 5 to 6 million mourners and prompted an outpouring of grief across the Arab world. Till next time, I'm Price Robertson. Amazed by today's trivia? Then join me every Monday through Friday morning for Trivia Tracks on Fox Sports Camden 97.1.